Hey, welcome back to jamplay.com. You're with Mark Brennan. How you doing? We're going to continue on with my basic electric guitar series. This is lesson 6. Okay, now we're going to actually start to learn some notes, learn some basic rhythms, and learn a small little exercise, which is actually a tune orally. We're going to start learning the natural notes in the first position. So on this lesson, we'll concentrate on the top 3 strings. Now you remember about my proximity with the strings. The top 3 strings are the thin strings, the highest pitch strings, the E, the B, and the G strings. So we're going to concentrate on the natural notes in the first position. Now, what are the natural notes? The natural notes are like the white keys on a piano keyboard. They're the musical alphabet letter names that don't have sharps or flats next to them. So they're the notes that are included in the key of C major, which we'll also learn shortly too. Okay, so let's get started with it. We'll start with the natural notes on the first 3 strings, and we'll be right back. Thanks. Okay, natural notes in the first position. We're going to start with the top 3 strings, the treble strings, the E string, the B string, and the G string. Okay, now natural notes. These are the names of the notes in the musical alphabet without any sharps or flats. The natural notes you can think of as the white keys on a piano keyboard. Those are all the natural notes. The natural notes are the notes that are included in the key of C major, which we will talk about in a future lesson. Okay, so let's start with the first string. Now the open string is E. Now we talked about our left hand position in the previous lesson. Now when you're playing open strings, you want to be able to hover your fingers over the strings without holding the side of the neck. That's real important. Make sure that you have your proper sitting posture where you're holding the guitar against your chest and you have it under your arm where you can balance the neck without having to grab the side of the neck. So when you play the open E string, you can hover the fingers over the frets like this. Now notice how I have my fingers spread out over the position. Now the first position, by the way, we didn't really talk about what a position on the guitar is. It's a 4-fret span on the fretboard, and the name of the position is the number of the fret under your index finger. So the first position is the first 4 frets. You can see that I have my fingers spread out over the frets. Okay. Again, bad hand position would be something like this, where you have to kind of stretch your fingers to get to the 3rd and 4th frets in the position. You want to get the hand around, get the fingers spread out over the frets like this. Okay, so we have our good hand position. Now let's start with the open E. And then we're going to play the first fret on the first string, which is F. Okay, now you can refer to the supplemental material. I have all the notes there right on the staff and on the tab for you. And I think at this point we have to talk about placing the finger on the fret. Okay, again, we talked about getting right on the tips of your fingers. You can see where I have the little crease of the finger where I press down on the string. Now, the ideal place to press your finger is right up next to the fret wire. Okay, now a couple of don'ts. Don't let your finger fall down too far on the fret like this. What'll happen is you'll get a rattle or a buzz on the fret like that. You want to get it right up next to the fret wire. Another common thing that you don't want to do is put your finger right on the fret wire. Now see, at this point you're actually touching part of the vibrating string. and you get that muffled sound. Okay, so we want to put the finger right next to the fret wire. If you're down about 1/4 of an inch, you're still going to be in good shape. Certain chord positions, chord fingerings, it's really impossible to get the fingers right next to the frets. But the ideal spot, especially for single note playing, is right next to the fret wire, right on the tip. So good curve, right on the tip of the finger. Okay, so there's our F note. Okay, it's a half step or 1 fret up from the open E. Now with our third finger, or a ring finger is our number 3 finger, we'll play the G at the 3rd fret. So the 3rd fret first string is G, and we play it with our ring finger. Now we're also going to play the A note. I think I figured I'd throw this note in for you. Actually what we do is we do a finger stretch with our pinky up to 5. Okay, so we'll check out the A at the 5th fret. Okay, so you have the open E, you have the F, the G, and then the A. Okay, so the A is actually out of the position. We do what we call a finger stretch. Try to keep your hand in the position and just reach with your pinky up to the 5th fret. If you slide your hand up a little bit, it's no big deal. But if you're playing in the position, that's considered a finger stretch out of the position. Okay, so those are the notes on the top E string. Now let's move to the B string. Okay, again, hovering my fingers over the fretboard. I'm not going to try to hold the side of the neck. I'm going to play the open B. Now we'll go a half step up to C. Okay. 3rd fret we have D with our 3rd finger. Okay, so on the B string we have open B, C, and then D. Now again, refer to your supplemental materials. You have the notes on the standard staff, and you have the notes on the tab, which you should already know. You should know how to read the tab by now. Okay, then we'll move to the 3rd string. Open 3rd string is G. Now we're going to use our middle finger, our 2nd finger on the A, which is on the 2nd fret. Okay, so you probably noticed by now that the fret number and the finger number in the first position are the same. You play any 1st fret note with your 1st finger, any 3rd fret note with your 3rd finger, and the 2nd fret A with your 2nd finger. Okay, so we can do a simple exercise. We can start with the G. We'll go from the low G, or the G on the 3rd string, up to the high G, and then we'll throw in the A, and then we'll come back down to the G. And let's do it in like half notes, so 2 counts each. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's the B, the C, and the D, open E, F, G, and then A. Now I'll descend to the G, to the F, the E, the D, C, B, A, and G. Okay, so again, fretting the notes, you noticed how my fingers are right next to the fret wires. Now, let's talk about playing legato. What is playing legato? It's playing smooth and connected. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to give the notes their full sustain, connected right to the next note. Now, this is something that's kind of tricky for most beginners. A lot of times a beginner will put their finger down too early and they'll cut the note off. And another problem is when they're going from a fretted note to an open string, or a fretted note to another fretted note, they'll pick their finger up too quickly, like that, and you're cutting the note off. So in other words, it creates a choppy sound to your playing. So when we're going from an open string to a fretted note, don't put the finger down until right at the point that you want to play the note, and that connects the notes. When I'm going from the A to the open B, hold that note down right up to the point that you play the open B. Don't put the index down on the C too early, right at the point you want to play it. Now, I'm going to play the D with my ring finger it down right at the point you want to play it. Hold the third finger down right up to the point you play the open E. When I go for the F, I put the finger down right when I want to play the note, and then I'm not going to put my ring finger down too early here, or it'll create this effect. It'll cut the F off. So I want to put the ring finger down right at the point that I attack the note. That's real important. Okay, so you want to get this kind of effect to the scale, where it's smooth and connected. Up on the tips of the fingers, I'm real relaxed, stretching out over the position, smooth and connected. Might seem like a simple elementary thing, but when you practice, these are the things you want to think about. You want to think about smooth, connected playing. Okay, so I think what we'll do is we'll stop here, and then we'll come back in the next segment. We're going to learn a little song using these notes called Oral E. I'll be right back. Okay, so we're back with Oral E. Now we learned the natural notes on the first 3 strings. We talked about playing smooth and legato, getting on the tips of our fingers and getting the tips of our fingers right next to the fret wire. So we're going to go ahead and learn what basically is a very beautiful folk song. We can think of it as an exercise, but we can make it very musical at the same time. Okay, so if you look at your supplemental material, we have Oral E up there for you. We need to touch briefly about the note values. Now, you might be a little familiar with this, but let's go over it real quick. We won't spend a lot of time on it. Won't get too in depth with it, but we need to talk about quarter notes, half notes, and whole notes. Now, if you look at the music, you see on the standard notation, you have the quarter notes, which are the solid note heads with the stems. They get 1 count. Okay, in 4/4, we can get 4 quarter notes in 1 bar. Okay, so the quarter note gets 1 count. Now, the hollow note head with the stem, as you see in bar 2 of Oral E there, is a half note, and that gets 2 counts. And then the note head, the hollow note head without any stem on it, is a whole note, and that gets 4 complete counts. So you see that a whole note will fill a complete bar, as in bar 8 on Oral E. You can see that the note C right there on the first fret of the B string, that gets 4 counts. Okay, so Oral E mixes up the quarter notes, half notes, and whole notes. It's pretty elementary math. It's just all you have to do is count to 4. And then when you get to the bar line, you start with 1. Now, on my metronome, I have it set at 80 beats per minute. And with my Boss Dr. Beat 30, the high-pitched beep is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So let me demonstrate it for you. So these are all quarter notes. Half note. There's the C and the G. Those are half notes. Got a series of quarter notes. There's a half note D. Now this C, 2, 3, whole note. Now a series of open E's here. There's a whole note E for you. Continuing on. Okay, so there you have it at 80 beats per minute. Now I hope you have a metronome. I would suggest you use the metronome. I always encourage my students to tap their foot to the quarter note also. If this feels natural for you, I would really encourage you to tap your foot. Tapping your foot helps you keep a steady beat when you don't have a metronome. It's kind of like, think of it as like a body metronome, as your clock. I'm always tapping my foot. I'm always encouraging my students to tap the foot. Okay, so we played Oral E. We went over the note values. Let's look at it again real quick. Now again, use the correct fingering. Anything on the first fret, use the first finger. Anything on the third fret, use the third finger. And then the A note, which is on the second fret, we're going to use our middle finger. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to get away from the metronome so I can perform this for somebody. I want to try to keep it nice and steady. Okay, so I'll just set a tempo for myself right about here, and then I'll play it, try to play it nice and steady. Now don't forget about the smooth legato playing. You want to try to get this nice and smooth. You want to get the choppiness out of your playing. So you don't want any notes to be cut off too early to make it sound choppy. So we start with an open G. There's our C. Now I'm slowing it down for you. Open B, C. Now a lot of people have a problem with that 3-2-3 fingering. That might feel a little uncomfortable at first. Make sure that you have a good stretch there between your second and third finger. Try not to get into this kind of a deal, okay? Or try not to bounce your hand like this. Try to stretch the fingers out and make a nice smooth connection. Okay, now we can proceed on with the C, the B, the A, the B, and the C. Don't lift too early. Pick it up right when you play the G. Get your fingers nice and close to the frets. Two. There's a whole note. Now see, I'm hovering my fingers. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this, right? I'm keeping them right in the ready position. Whole note. 3, 4. F. Now here's that 3, 2, 3 on the D, A, D. 3, 4. Okay, so there you have it. Make it musical. Perform it for people. Play it nice and smooth and relaxed. And you'll get a lot of enjoyment out of playing that. Okay, so we'll take a break here. And we'll come back in the next segment. We'll get on to the bottom 3 strings, the 4th D string, 5th string A, and 6th string E. So we'll be right back. Okay, we're back with the natural notes in the first position. We're going to get on the bottom 3 strings now, the D, the A, and the E strings. Okay, so on the D string, we have a whole step from D to E. Okay, so we'll play that with our middle finger. Then half step E to F with the 3rd finger. Okay, so we have D, E, and F. Okay, moving on to the A string. Same frets. We have a whole step A to B, and then half step to C. Okay. Now we'll move down to the low E string. Now E to F is the half step, so we're back on the 1st fret for the F with our middle finger. And then the G on the 3rd fret of the low 6th string. Okay, so let's review those. Let's start with the lowest string and go up to the D string. We have E. There's our F with the index. There's G. Open A. Let's connect the notes smoothly. B with the 2nd finger. Here's your C. You have D, E, and then your F. Okay, now let's refer to the supplemental contents. We have in series from the lowest note to the highest note that we learned in the position, all the way up to the high A and back down to the low E. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll play them in half notes. Let's play it at 80 beats per minute. So we're going to start with the low E. There's your F, G, A, B, C, D, E, the F, open G, A, B, there's your C, D, E, F, G. Now stretch to the A. Now we're going to descend back to the G, F, E, D. Notice I'm doing a nice slow tempo half notes. Legato, smooth, on the tips of your fingers. Relax. Make it comfortable. Make it smooth. And there you have it. Okay, so that's a great exercise. Stretch your fingers out. Go up and down. Play it smooth. If you want to kick up the tempo a little bit, you can do that. Okay, so practice that. Get those notes under your fingers real comfortably. And we'll come back and we'll learn Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Thanks. Okay, we're back. Now let's learn another real pretty song, Somewhere Over the Rainbow. This will incorporate some of the notes on the lower strings that we just looked at. Now again, we're going to stay on the tips of our fingers. We're going to try to connect the notes, make it real smooth, make it real musical. Okay, and again, make sure you use the proper fingering. Now all you have to do is remember that the finger number and the fret number are the same in the first position. Okay, so if you look at your supplemental music, you have the standard notation with the tab. Now one thing you might want to notice, we have a couple eighth notes. Eighth notes are a quarter note subdivided, so it splits the beat up into two attacks. So you would count that, well, it's on the second beat, so we're going to count that 2 and. Okay, so hopefully you'll just get the feel of it. We won't have to get too involved with eighth note counting. I think that might be a subject for a whole lesson, is eighth note counting. But we'll just listen and get the feel of it. Okay, so Somewhere Over the Rainbow, we're going to start with our C on the A string with our third finger. It'll get 2 counts, and then we're going to play the octave C. Okay, now this sounds pretty holding the notes together, actually. Okay, but we can separate them. What I don't want you to do is this. Okay, I want you to connect the notes, hold that ringer finger down right up to the time that you play the upper C. Okay, moving on to the second bar, we have the B. Now we have 2 and on the second beat. That's 2 and on the G and the A. The third beat is the open B and then the C. So we have C, 2, 3, 4, open B, 1, 2, and 3, 4. So you could just practice that much of it just to get that musical and smooth. Nice and relaxed. Now we're going to go back to the low C. Now the A with the second finger, whole note open G. Keep the fingers hovering. Again, a common thing that students will always do when they play an open string is they tend to poke their fingers up like this. Keep the fingers curved. Basically about maybe a ½ inch, no more than an inch off the plane of the strings when you're playing open notes. Moving on, we have the open A. Again, you're hovering. Then we have the F, then the E, eighth note C, D, E, F. Now open D, B, C, D, then the E, then the C. Okay, that's the basic melody. Now let's repeat it in rhythm. Okay, I'll just try it without a metronome, see if I can keep it nice and steady. I want to make it musical. Okay, I really want to act like I'm singing this with some passion, with some emotion. 2, 4. Okay, let's repeat it. And there you have it, Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Okay, so that does it for this lesson. The natural notes in the first position. We'll take a break and I'll come back and I'll wrap up all the points that we talked about. So we'll see you then. Okay, so that concludes lesson 6, the natural notes in the first position. I hope you really enjoyed it. Just remember about your left hand position. Remember about playing smooth and legato. Have a good time playing those melodies. Try to memorize the notes. Anything that you can memorize from the lesson is always a plus. Memorize the melodies so you can just sit down and impress your family and friends with, hey, look, I can play this song from memory. And again, keep it relaxed and keep it musical and just have a good time doing it and play every day, practice every day. And looking ahead, we're going to talk about the C major scale next because we know all the notes in the C major scale now. Okay, so I'm Mark Brennan for jamplay.com, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.